Welcome back to 5 for 5. Today we're talking all about cans. From aluminum soda cans to the steel food containers at your local grocery store, these products are around us every day. Today I'm joined by Scott Breen from the Can Manufacturers Institute. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. So Scott, who is Scott Breen and what is your role at the Can Manufacturers Institute?
All right. Thank you, Tim. Well, I am an association executive that started as an environmental lawyer. My interest in the environment actually started when I was 13 years old, did a long canoe trip in Quetico Provincial Park, got interested in how these areas are protected, and that led me to study government, economics, environmental studies at Georgetown University. Then I continued my studies at Indiana University, law degree, master's of public affairs, worked as an attorney at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration for a couple years, but then transitioned into corporate sustainability with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, and then was very fortunate to get the opportunity to lead sustainability for Can Manufacturers Institute. And I actually became the president of this organization last June. This has meant many things, including becoming an expert on all things trade and tariffs. We also put together a new strategic framework to guide the organization in the future. And also on the side of all that, those steps in my career, I started up my own podcast. So I'm with you, podcaster. Sustainability Defined. We define sustainability one concept and one bad joke at a time. I'll probably work in a couple bad jokes here. We started that in 2016, thousands of regular listeners all over the world, more than 80 episodes over 9 years. There's actually 2 new hosts now. We transitioned it, so I encourage your listeners to go check it out.
Awesome. Well, so then tell me, what is the Can Manufacturers Institute and how does it help its members?
Yes, so CMI, we represent U.S. metal can makers and their suppliers. So the people that make the cans and the people that make the metal and the other components used to make the cans, not so much the brands like Coke or Pepsi or General Mills. We have focus areas: trade and tariffs, sustainability, materials, business critical information, and we have core functions in those areas around advocacy, communications, and events. We recently updated our mission, vision, and core values. If people want to see that, they can go to cancentral.com/about. Give you a little teaser. The mission is to spark collaboration that enhances the U.S. can industry's ability to compete. We're proud of the work we've accomplished in the past year in 2025. Lots of touch points with the administration and lawmakers on tariffs. We actually had a big meeting in the fall. We brought in CEOs, executives of our can maker members, of their customers, the food brands, to talk with the administration about how the tariffs on steel are adding costs to make steel cans, but without the payoff of more domestic tinplate production. We've also continued work in our pillars of action to reach our aluminum beverage can recycling rate targets, and we provided our members with that business critical information I was talking about with members-only webinars. We're excited about the strategic framework I referred to. We've got 3 outcomes we're laser focused on with strategies and tactics underneath each. And I've been fortunate since I started last June to go around to visit a lot of member facilities, see cans being made at the amazing speed and with high quality. We actually make a little more than 250,000 metal cans every minute in the United States. And
Every
as I went
minute.
around every minute.
250,000 every minute.
I know it's crazy, the scale at which we're operating. And as I talked with members about CMI and the value we bring, there were several things that I heard across my discussions. One is that they appreciate that we are their voice in Washington, D.C. and with the media. They appreciate that we help them understand the implications for them and the industry of current and prospective laws and regulations. And they appreciate that we bring the industry together to address industry-wide challenges.
Awesome. Well, that's a ton of work, right? And you mentioned there a little bit about used beverage containers. Obviously, we've got a little bit of an issue with landfilling aluminum cans here in the United States. What are some ways that we can start to address that, and what is CMI doing to address that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm proud to be working for an industry that the aluminum beverage can is the most recycled beverage container in the United States and the world. And we're the most recycled beverage container in the United States with a 43% recycling rate. That translates into recycling nearly 90,000 aluminum beverage cans every minute. But we're not satisfied with that. To your point, that's still more than half of the aluminum beverage cans and that valuable aluminum that can be recycled infinitely go into landfill. So in 2021, our members set targets. They said, we want to get that rate up. We want to get it to 70% by 2030, 80% by 2040, 90% by 2050. And you can't just set targets. You got to explain how you're going to get there. So we put out a preliminary roadmap. We've since put out a targets update report, and we make clear these 4 pillars of action and how we're going to get to these targets. And the reality is that there's one pillar that's key, and that's new deposit return systems. So 10 states have this right now. It's where you pay 5 or 10 cents when you buy the beverage container. And then when you return the container, you get that 5 or 10 cents back. That financial incentive is key to getting up to the 70, 80, 90% that we're talking about. You can't do it without that financial incentive. So we've done a lot of work on advocacy, I said deposit return systems. We also call it recycling refunds. We're in this coalition. It's called the Coalition for High Performance Recycling that we're working with a lot of different industries, brands trying to make this happen. If people want to read those reports that I mentioned, they can go to cancentral.com/sustainability/targets. We haven't had a new deposit return system in a while, even though I mentioned 10 states have it. What's passed is what's called extended producer responsibility. There's been 7 states that have passed EPR laws since 2021. This shifts the costs of recycling to producers or consumer brands. And so what we want to see is if you are going to pass an EPR for packaging law, you do it alongside a recycling refund for beverage containers. Beyond the recycling refunds advocacy, we're also have an Every Can Counts program where we're working at events and festivals like Mardi Gras and golf courses to get cans recycled. We also have a Million Cans Recycling contest. We've got thousands of elementary school students collecting millions of cans each year to raise money for their school.
That's a big one. So Shapiro participates in that. I've donned the inflatable unicorn suit a couple times now for our school out in Washington, Missouri. It's an absolutely incredible program. And just to see those kids get fired up about recycling and tell their parents, and
totally.
I'm a huge fan of that program. So that's really, really great that you guys are involved in that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is you mentioned this too, tariffs on steel and other materials. How have the tariffs, which have been so big in the news over the last year, affecting your members as well?
No, yeah. The reality is that the Section 232 tariffs on aluminum and steel, they're greatly impacting my members because the metal is the key thing you need to make the can. It's also the highest cost input. So we're all for more aluminum production, more tinplate steel production in the United States. But the reality is that we don't make nearly enough aluminum or tinplate steel here, and we're not going to for many reasons, including the economics behind such investments. So these tariffs, they're adding significant costs to making cans here in the United States without the payoff. Oh, if you don't mind, Tim, I want to zoom in on tinplate. So tinplate steel, it's this specialized niche product used to make steel cans. Only 1% of all steel goes into making tinplate. So with it being so specialized, you have U.S. steel producers taking their capital investment dollars and putting into higher volume, higher margin products. And the result has been that now we have to import nearly 80% of the tinplate steel we're using to make steel cans in the United States. And all that imported tinplate, again, the largest cost input to making a can, that has significantly, there's a higher cost with that imported tinplate because the tariff jumped in June from 25 to 50%. That's a big jump. And the can makers, they're largely a pass-through. So they take that added cost from the tariff and they pass it on to their customer, the brand, who then often passes it on to the consumer. So what does this mean in terms of price increases at the grocery store? Well, one analysis from Consumer Brands Association hypothesized that it would be a 12 to 15% jump. So like a $2 can of vegetables, 18 to 30-cent jump. We haven't seen as much price increase.
Just based on the cost of the can. Just based on the can, not the content, just the can.
Just the cost of that added tariff cost. And there's a lag, though, in terms of the full impact of that tariff being passed along. So we're expecting greater price increases in 2026. This jeopardizes U.S. food security. It also increases the cost of nutrients and canned goods that people depend on. And it also gives a cost advantage to foreign competitors. And we have seen imported canned foods rise. So my members, they're going to be hurt if these cost increases result in brands switching to less sustainable packaging or people buying less cans. And the reality is steel can makers directly employ more than 7,000 people across 23 states. Customers support thousands more, and that's significantly more jobs than U.S. tinplate production. We continue to talk to the administration. We want to partner with them and come up with a program that leads to more domestic tinplate production, but also recognizes the role imports play and give the administration a political win leading into the midterms, and also provides relief for us, domestic manufacturers, but also farmers and consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's a ton of work there, I think, ahead of you guys, but really, really important work. I mean, just the fact that tariffs can increase the cost of, the can of beans by so much, that's really shocking. So thanks for sharing. The last question here. CMI, obviously has a particular interest in investing in MRFs. That's a great place to be getting feedstock out of. So how do you guys actually go about supporting these facilities?
Yeah, so the material recovery facilities, that's where they sort single stream recyclables. And unfortunately, up to 1 in 4 aluminum beverage cans is missorted at a MRF. So that's worst case scenario, but there is missortation occurring. You can think about like a flattened 2D can getting sorted with the paper. This is frustrating because these are cans people put in the recycling and then we hauled to a material recovery facility. So this permanent roadmap, it talks about how this pillar of action to get more proper sortation of aluminum beverage cans, we can get a couple billion more cans that way with a B, billion. And it's also the fastest way for us to get millions of new cans recycled. So we actually started a grant program with the Recycling Partnership with funding from 2 of our members, Ardagh Metal Packaging and Crown Holdings. Gave out 8 grants, and across the equipment that we funded with those grants, 150 million used beverage cans per year will be captured. We've transitioned though from the grants to revenue share agreements, where we fund the full cost of the equipment, but we say to that material recovery facility, we'll pay for this equipment, but you got to give us some percentage of the revenue from the cans captured so that we make our money back, then we go away and you keep the equipment. So we've done 3 of these. The most recent is with First Star Recycling in Omaha, Nebraska. Again, this is with funding from Ardagh Metal Packaging and Crown Holdings, as well as some money we got from the earlier revenue share agreements. And so, yeah, we get a 50% revenue share, and then they've guaranteed that after 3 years, we'll get our money back. So it's a beautiful thing. Cans paying for themselves.
That's awesome. That's it. And to make that something that works economically for these facilities and gives them a way to get into that process with that equipment is awesome. Yeah. So Scott, I've learned a lot. Obviously there's a ton of work to do, but you guys are at the forefront of it. And I appreciate everything that you shared with me today. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. All right.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.